Hello, class. Dr. Bauer's office hours here, back at it again with more ethics. Today I want to talk about the three kinds of ethical thought that we're going to go over in this course. Here's some study guide questions for you to start with. First, what is ethics? Secondly, what are consequentialist ethics? Thirdly, what are deontic ethics? And finally, what are virtue ethics? As with all the lectures, you may want to follow along with a notepad and write down the answers of the questions so that you make sure to have them on recall later. And let's begin with the question of what ethics is. Ethics is the philosophical study of moral right and moral wrong, or moral goods and moral bads. Maybe those are the same thing, maybe they're not. That's also an ethical question. Ethics is the philosophical study of moral value. This includes what's right and what's wrong, what's good and what's bad, what's fair and just, what's unfair and unjust, and associated or affiliated judgments. When you're thinking about what it's okay to do, or what you're forbidden to do, what's never okay to do, or what people ought to be doing, all of those are ethical concerns. And ethics is the philosophical study of those. I say philosophical study because, of course, there are a lot of ways that you might study moral right and moral wrong. You might study moral right and moral wrong in a kind of practical survey way. Go around and see how often moral rights and moral wrongs are reported by people. But philosophers, when they study it, what they want is a definition, or more. Philosophers want to know what it is to be morally right, or what it is to be morally wrong. If something is good to do, what does that mean about it? What makes it good? We're going to take a look at three theories about how to answer this question of what makes something good or what makes something right. And with each of those theories, I should add, there comes along a theory about what makes something bad or what makes something wrong. We're going to take a look at three ethical theories. The first is consequentialism. Consequentialist ethics judges the moral rightness or the moral wrongness of something based on the consequences. What happens as a result? Is it okay to break a promise? Is it okay to kill an innocent person? Is it okay to steal something? Well, a consequentialist approach would begin to answer those questions by asking, what's going to happen? What's going to happen if you break your promise? That'll help us decide whether it's right or wrong. What's going to happen if you kill an innocent person? That's going to help us decide whether it's right or wrong. What's going to happen if you steal something? That will help us decide whether it's right or wrong. A consequentialist will look at such actions and judge them to be right or wrong based on what they accomplish or what they bring about. If breaking a promise brings about a whole lot of joy and good outcomes for everyone, then the consequentialist would say that it's okay to break the promise. If breaking the promise brought about a bunch of sadness and tragedy, however, then the consequentialist would be against it. Note that for the consequentialist, there's no such thing as being wrong just because of what it is. Right? It's not that something could be wrong just because it's breaking a promise. If breaking a promise led to positive consequences, then it would be ethically good according to the consequentialist. If it led to bad things, however, then it would be ethically bad. If killing an innocent person led to a bunch of negative consequences, bad things, then the consequentialist would say it was bad. But if killing the innocent person led to a bunch of good consequences, positive things, then the consequentialist would say it's okay. And likewise for everything. You judge an action based on what it produces, what it leads to, what its outcomes are. That's the consequentialist way of looking at ethics. When we explore consequentialism next week, we're going to look at a very specific variety of consequentialism called utilitarianism. To contrast with consequentialism, consider a type of ethics that really focuses on absolutes, things that you can absolutely never do, no matter what the consequences, things that you absolutely have to do, no matter what the consequences. That way of thinking is deontic ethics. Deontic ethics is the ethics of absolute principles, absolute prohibitions, that is, things you're prohibited to do no matter what. That is, things that you're prohibited from doing no matter what. And absolute obligations, things that you are obligated to do no matter what. When we say no matter what, of course what we mean is no matter the consequences, or regardless of the consequences. Deontic ethics is about principles. Consequentialist ethics is about, well, results. The third type of ethics that we're going to look at is a little bit different. It's virtue ethics. And virtue ethics does not focus on actions at all. Notice that the first two varieties of ethics did. Consequentialist ethics evaluates actions based on their consequences. Deontic ethics evaluates actions based on what type of a thing they are. But virtue ethics does not ask whether it's okay to break a promise, or whether it's okay to do this or that, or what you should do. Virtue ethics asks, what kind of a person should you be? Should you be the kind of person who could never break a promise? Should you be the kind of person who could kill an innocent person? Should you be a certain kind of person or other? That's what virtue ethicists ask. And from a distance, these might not seem that different from one another. However, when we explore utilitarianism, and when we explore Kant and Plato in order to get to know deontic and virtue ethics respectively, we'll soon see that there are some very important differences between all of those. So, next week we're going to begin looking at utilitarianism, and after that some Kantian ethics, and then we'll finish up with Plato. I'll see you in the lecture next time.